I really think culture in corporations, business, companies is really, really important. I think we're seeing a real opportunity here, and there's a coming together, and it's a bit painful for many, but there's a real opportunity right now to make things right.
Yes.
And I feel like there is a movement, and personally, I believe companies have a role to play in this. And I'm sure many people would agree with me on this, that what matters right now is that employers shouldn't be complacent. It's not an option.
Inclusion is not about just acting fairly towards one group. In my view, if you're going to have a proper inclusion and belonging culture in your organization, you need to look at all the different non-dominant groups.
Mm-hmm. So what does it actually mean to create an inclusive culture? I mean,
ultimately, what that's all about is creating an open and trusting environment in which you have psychological safety for everybody, in which you have a sense of value being produced for the individual, the social group, and for the organization, and you have a sense of connection between everybody. So what you need as an organization, if you want to create an open and trusting environment, is that you make inclusion and belonging a key business objective. Like, the business cases exist out there, but they're not making a huge difference because we're not seeing the results, right? The business case is useful, but you need to look at, for your business, what does that mean? What is our business objective that's going to make investing time and resource in inclusion and belonging a worthwhile exercise? And you want to look at what are your core values around that, so that everybody understands your core values, not just at a wallpaper level, but they've internalized it and they know what behaviors inclusion and belonging would show. And you need obviously to have the policies that show up around that. You know, what policies you're going to have around equality and inclusion. So that's at the systemic level. And then you look at the individual level. The individual, the biggest thing, and this really shows up in Black Lives Matter, but the biggest thing is to listen, to encourage people to participate, and for them to experience that they're heard. And that's also an aspect of psychological safety. It's an aspect of connection and value. And those are the three things that we think are core for you to achieve if your cultural transformation program is going to be successful. You want to make sure, as far as possible, that the workforce reflects your local community or your client base. You know, there are lots of statements out there now about we stand for Black Lives Matter and we believe everybody should have an equal opportunity and we're going to listen and all of that, right?
mm-hmm.
But the truth is, if you're serious about that and your headquarters is in London, 30% of the London population are Black people, and you probably have 3%, and even less at the senior levels. So, you know, that's a really important aspect, is to make sure you reflect the local demographics or your client base, either way. And then you want to remove the barriers to individual progress. So this is about hearing and understanding, but also knowing that different demographic groups have different barriers, and you want to know what those are. And the only way you can know that is either you do the research yourself or you ask people. And when you ask people, you've got to be really mindful that that doesn't in itself put a stress on them, because a lot of people feel uncomfortable talking about those things. And there's a lot of material out there that you can read, or, you know, we can obviously provide for you to think about, you know, what is this particular group dealing with that makes it difficult for them to experience belonging in our organization, and what can we do to support them. And then the final thing from an individual level is really diversity is all about innovation and creativity. So at the individual level, what's really about empowering you to speak up, so that you have a sense of your value and you can stand up for yourself and you can articulate your value and be heard, right? Because a lot of that conversation of a brown woman or a Black man or whatever is in our head. So we need to clear our heads, right? So there's an individual level where we work on ourselves, or the organization empowers the person to work on themselves. There's
Yes.
also the level at which the leader needs support, right? It's not their fault that they're in a systemic environment. They didn't choose to be born where they were born. They didn't choose to have the privileges that they have. But they need to understand that they have privilege. They need to understand how to work with different groups of people in the organization. And they need to feel there's a value for them in doing that. Share a little piece of research with you, if I may, which is about the human experience and what makes people feel like they belong in the company you work at. And I find this fascinating. So for 59% of the people in this survey, and this is a LinkedIn survey, by the way, so it's, you know, it's got credibility. From an individual point of view, it's being recognized for my accomplishments.
Mm-hmm.
And that means getting some kind of feedback, right? Very often people don't get feedback, whether it's good or bad feedback. You know, people need that in order to progress. Having the opportunity to express feelings freely, express my opinions freely, and not feel like I'm being judged, that's really important to people. Feeling that my contributions in team meetings are valued. So you can see where the value component of safety, connection, and value really is important if you're going to build an organization in which people experience belonging and can be fully productive.
Yes.
And linked to that is feeling comfortable with being myself at work, transparent communication, feeling like my team and company cares about me as a person, and having feedback on my personal growth. So you can see there's a theme, right? So these are the top 7. Being assigned work that's deemed to be important, having the company values aligned with my own personal values, and being a part of important company meetings. And here's the interesting thing. A lot of people talk about the importance of role models.
Yes.
And it's like, this is the big thing we've got to have. We've got to have people at that level. Do you know, in this survey, seeing executives who look like me and seeing co-workers who look like me were right at the bottom of the list, 8%.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
So yes, it's useful. Yes, it's helpful, but it's
Yeah.
not what's going to engage your people. You need to go a bit deeper than that. Think about language. So a big challenge is language, right? So you want to have a shared language that everybody understands around equality, right? So you want to explore. One of the first things we do with our clients is really explore, what do you mean by equality? What does equality mean to you? What does diversity mean to you? What does inclusion? Yeah, and have really create a safe space. So our you know, obviously organizations can do that in-house, but the skill we bring is creating a safe space in which those conversations can take place, because those are challenging conversations, right? And then when you're you need to make it level appropriate as well.
So really what we're saying is that people need to be brave, leaders need to be a bit brave here and courageous, and actually invite the conversation and open the door for the conversation to happen.
The leaders need to be brave, the managers and the followers need to be brave, and more than anything, the environment needs to be brave and safe. I can't stress enough how important that for these conversations to even start to happen, you've got to everybody has to feel safe, because otherwise you're going to have people who cover up,